And we're off. Welcome to Fitzdog Radio. It's a special mano a mano, or maybe you're a womano, or maybe you're a transo. Whatever you are, it's just me and you, baby. Solo podcast, 2022. Going to do a lot of them. Got too much to say sometimes. I get this. I have some comedian in here doing their shtick or their bits or their sketches. And there's not enough time for me to share with you, the listener. Intimate. And what better week to do it than St. Patrick's Day, my high holy holiday. Very important day to me. St. Patrick's Day is huge. If you're a New Yorker or a Philadelphian or a Bostonian or it's huge. It's Savannah, Georgia. Chicagoan. But Savannah has, I don't know why, but they've got a major Irish population. They've got, I think I'm right when I say the second largest St. Patrick's Day parade in the country. And I need to go to that shit one year because Savannah sounds kind of gorgeous. I got a buddy there, Craig Anton. I could go stay with him and check out how the Southerners do St. Patrick's Day. I think that might be fun. But New York is having the parade this year. I don't think they've had it. I think this is the first time in 3 years they've had the parade. It is now, they have decided that based on the number of COVID cases in New York, it is now safe. It is a safe place to now unleash 600,000 drunken suburban Irish mix to have bottle fights in the street. It's safe for that now. And I'm just talking about the women. We went every year. When I was a kid, we went to the parade I'm sorry. Maybe you've listened to this podcast for years, and I've talked about St. Patrick's Day, so maybe you've heard it. But you know what? It's like a great old Yeats poem. You sit around the fire, and Grandpa tells you some verses from Yeats, and you start saying it along. Maybe some of you are gonna mouth the words to some of my stories today because they're classics. But we used to go down to the city, and my grandfather, Florence McCarthy, would march with the Ancient Order of Hibernians from Throgs Neck in the Bronx, and they would hold their chins up high, and they'd wear suits and ties and their Irish pins, and he was in the fucking IRA. My grandfather was in the Irish Republican Army. When he was a teenager, he used to run messages around. And then he left Ireland when he was about 16 years old, moved to New York. He was one of 13. And they would collect enough money, and they'd ship one kid at a time over as soon as they could afford it. They lived in I'm not fucking making this up. They lived in like a 3-room mud hovel in Ireland. I'm not ashamed of that. That's 2 generations ago. My grandfather lived in a mud hovel with fucking 13 brothers and sisters. And they made their way over here one by one. And the ones that came over would save enough money to send it back to the old sod and put another fucking mick in the steerage of a ship to maybe make it over. And once they'd make it here, they'd look up friends and relatives and try to trust that they'd be taken care of. My grandfather worked for Con Edison, which is the electric company in New York, his whole life. Married Margaret, his wife, and they raised, there was 5 kids. 6. One of them died when he was young, and 5 survived. And they went on to have, one had 7 kids, another one had 7 kids. One had 1 kid, and then 2 of them had 3 kids. So I've got like 21 or 22 cousins. Pretty close to all of them. They're amazing people. Anyway, but going into the city was a blast. When I was a little kid, I mean, I could just remember the sound of the pipes, the bagpipes and the fifes and the snare drums and the Kaylee dancing. It was beautiful. I miss it so much. Mike is going to be there. Mike Gibbons is going to be there this year, and I'm so jealous. He's going with his father and his sister and his whole family. But I will be doing the St. Patrick's Day show at the Improv if you're in L.A. Thursday, St. Patrick's Day, March 17th. Come on down to the Hollywood Improv. It's going to be Andrew Santino's doing it this year. Jeffrey Ross, Jew, will pretend he's Irish on that day. Whitney Cummings, Annie Letterman, Owen Smith. Bunch of surprises. It's going to be a great show. Come on down. Also got dates coming up in La Jolla, Spokane, New Orleans, Lafayette, Louisiana, Plainville, Massachusetts at the casino there, Denver Comedy Works, and Tacoma, Washington, all coming up in the next month and a half. So go to Fitzdog.com, get some tickets, come out and see me do some live comedy. Yeah, baby. But the first time I did comedy, people always ask me that. When's the first time you did comedy? And I have to say it was at the St. Patrick's Day parade. I was probably a sophomore in high school, so I was like 15. And we had all gone into the city for the day, and we were on like the last train home, which I think was a 1:08 a.m. train. That was the last one on Metro North going back to Tarrytown. It was about a 30-minute ride, and I got on the train with a bunch of buddies, and I walked up and down the car, fairly inebriated, and making jokes, telling jokes, fucking around with people, doing a little crowd work, and I was killing. I killed, and I did it the entire train ride. And that was like my first stand-up comedy performance. I was obnoxious. I mean, look, we've all seen that teenager ourselves now, and all you think is, what a little asshole. What a tool. But that's not how it felt. I felt like Jerry Lewis at the Ziegfeld in front of 3,000 people killing. That's what it felt like. And I got the bug. I think I got the bug from that. We used to go down. It was gross. The St. Patrick's Day parade has been cleaned up, maybe too much. Now there's no drinking in the streets, but it used to be just bars packed out into the streets, people, peeing on mailboxes and throwing up next to, street signs, and it was ugly. And there were a lot of fights. And I'm glad they cleaned that up a little bit, but now it's a little boring. The last time I went, and I went and I marched with there's a thing called the Irish Echo and the Irish American magazine, and they every year they round up. They call it the top 100 Irish Americans, and one year I was given that distinction. So they flew me into New York and they had a dinner. And then we all marched together in the parade the next day. And at the dinner was my family all came, and my brother flirted with Maureen Dowd from the New York Times, the columnist from the Times. I don't know what happened, but they were flirting for most of the night. Frank McCourt was there, the guy who wrote Angel's Ashes and all those books. I think he's gone now. His brother Malachi is still around. And the Riverdance guy was there. Remember the Riverdance, how big that was? People love the Riverdance. Now nobody talks about it anymore. And then we used to go to the Friars Club. My father would always have a party. It wasn't I don't know if it was on St. Patrick's Day or it was the week of St. Patrick's Day. But my father was the token Irish guy at the Friars Club, and so he would have this big St. Patrick's Day party, and he would get an Irish band, and he'd bring in like a troupe of like little girl like step dancers would come in, and just it was amazing. Open bar, and he invited all his friends, and then a lot of the old Jewish guys from the Friars Club would come in, and they'd never seen St. Patrick's Day really celebrated like this before. And we would drink, and me and my mother would always sing. And here's the thing you got to know about that. That sounds like a nice thing until you hear either one of our voices. Literally, the two worst singers in North America, my mother and I. And I'm not saying that to be funny or to be self-deprecating. Literally cannot sing a note. And there's a song called Four Green Fields, and it's an old traditional Irish ballad. And my mother and I would step up and we would sing it, and people would roar with laughter at how bad we were. And that's all we wanted. You want me to sing it right now? Long time ago, said the proud old woman. All right, it goes like that. Look it up online. It's a beautiful song about the Irish fighting for their land from the British. Those bastards. God damn them. And then I remember one year, Boston, when I went to college in Boston, I would obviously go to that parade because I think the city shuts down. I think it's a holiday in Boston. I don't think people work on St. Patrick's Day. And you go to Southie, and the parade goes through Southie, and people open their doors. It's amazing. I mean, Boston is not known as a warm place, but on that day, every single house has a door wide open, and you walk in, and they give you food. They give, they have like some corned beef and cabbage going, beer. You hang out, you talk, you see who you know that they know, and then you go to the next house. It's amazing. And so I took a Greyhound bus up to Boston from New York. I was going back to school one time, and I sat next to this girl, and she was cute, and she seemed really nice. And so we talked, and she was Irish, and so I said, "Hey, do you want to go to the parade with me?" And so she said, "Okay, yeah, I've never been to the St. Patrick's Day." I said, "You never been to the St. Patrick's Day parade?" She's like, "No." I said, "All right, you're going to have a blast. You're not going to believe how much fun it is." So we meet up that morning, and we go down, and we go to a bar, and then she tells me that she doesn't drink. So now, giant red flag. Irish girl in college that doesn't drink. So she doesn't drink. I'm drinking. I don't give a shit. And we go to people's houses, and she goes, "I don't feel right going into people's house. I don't know." No, that's the point. And then she sees people standing on rooftops, and she says, "That's dangerous. They shouldn't be up there." And then the fire truck comes along through the parade, and I remember she goes, "Oh, that's not a good idea. What if there's a fire and they need the fire truck?" So I ditched her. I fucking literally ditched her in a bar, and I went up and I met up with some friends that were going to be at J.J. Foley's. And she went to Boston College, and I let her find her way back home. I was done. That's too big of a day. I can't give up a day like that on Debbie Downer, on this wet napkin. Can't remember her name, but it was Irish, and I expected more from her. She was a redhead, for God's sake. I should show my tattoo. This is the tattoo. Everybody in the family got this. This is the Irish harp tattoo. Me and Aaron and JoJo and Owen all have it. And it represents the harp that was illegal. The British did not allow the Irish to play traditional music. They couldn't play Irish music, or they went to prison. And so there were these harps that they would hide in barns and in basements in the countryside, and they would have these illegal sessions where they would get together and they'd play Irish music. And if they got caught with the harp, they got sent to jail. So that's the symbol of... Wait, I've probably talked about that. So we all got them. And we're going this summer, the whole family. I'm bringing the kids, the wife, my mom, my sister's kids. We're all going to go. We were supposed to go. This will be the third summer in a row we've planned to go to Ireland. And hopefully it happens this year. I'm going to buy my tickets this week. They're expensive as shit because of the gas prices. First of all, why are gas prices up like $1 a gallon? We don't get our oil from Russia. We get like fucking 5% of our oil from Russia. The oil companies... I saw something online about what they made in profits. Like the biggest oil companies are making like 20 and 30 billion in profit. And these motherfuckers, the second they stand to not make as big of a profit, they spike the prices. We pay it at the pump. They are benefiting from this situation in Ukraine. It's disgusting. And you laugh at me with driving my Prius. I see you laughing at me. I see you pulling up in your Mustang 5.0 GT and judging me. Guess who's judging who now, asshole? That's right. All right, I still don't like it. I still don't like my Prius, but I'm hanging in with it. I'm thinking about getting a Vespa for the summer. My friend is selling his Vespa. You know, those scooters. I might grab that from him. Sell the Prius, and I don't know. Maybe buy a car in the fall, but spend the summer on the Vespa. That might be fun. So anyway, so we're going to Ireland. We're going to go with my cousins are coming also, and we got to rent a house in West Cork, which is a beautiful part of Ireland. It's on the water, and from there we can go to Kerry, which is where my family is from. Kenmare, which is a town in Kerry, which is beautiful. I haven't had a drink in 32 years. Isn't that amazing? But going to Ireland is going to be putting me to the test because I'm going to be watching my son and daughter and my niece and nephew and everybody slurping down some ice cold frothy Guinness and some nice crisp Harp, pints of Harp and Irish whiskey. It's going to be hard. Maybe I'll have a little Guinness. What could go wrong? Cut to 6 months later. I'm jacking off in a bus station, eating a rotten banana. Arrested. Not even big enough to make the paper. Just a footnote. I was in Ireland. I've been to Ireland. This will be like my 4th time going to Ireland. And the first time, I was 18. I just graduated high school. And I went over there, and I was with a buddy at the time. I traveled alone most of the time, but I was with a buddy for the first couple months. I was there. I was in Europe for like 6 months, and we spent the first 2 months in Ireland. And we rented a house. It was like nothing. It cost like nothing because it had no heat. You had to burn what they call peat, which is fucking mud. It's bricks of mud that you burn. And when I say burn, it gives off about as much heat as a fart. It's nothing. And your hot water for your baths and shower come off of the heat from the peat in the fireplace. That's what heats the water pipes. So fucking cold showers. And we were there in October and November, which are not great months in Ireland. Wet and cold. But I met this girl. There's a pub in Kenmare called the Atlantic Pub. And there was a girl there named Molly who was the bartender. And she had deep red hair and green eyes and porcelain skin. And she was lovely. And she had a hot little body. And she was the bartender at the Atlantic Pub. And I would go there. And it was a fair walk from the house into town. You walk down like a cow path. And you got into town, and I'd go to the Atlantic Pub, and I'd get some fish and chips, and I'd drink a bunch of pints, and I would flirt with Molly, and she flirted right back, and I was smitten. And so she asked me what I wanted to do with my life, and I told her I wanted to be a writer. And so I secretly started writing. I was going to write a novel, and I wrote it for her. And I didn't tell her I was writing it for her, but I wrote it. And when I say novel, novella would probably be a better description. It was probably about maybe 70 pages, longhand in notebooks. And I finished it, and then I brought it to the pub, and I gave it to her to read. It was called Evergreen. That was the name of the novel. And she read it, and she told me the next day that it was brilliant. And I was like, wow. She's the first person to read it, and the review is brilliant. I was fucking blown away. Suddenly I was like, maybe I will be a writer. And then I realized, like, oh no, like the Irish will call a piece of fish brilliant, or they'll call a shower. I had a brilliant shower. Brilliant gets thrown around a lot, so it wasn't. But she did love it, but she was a Catholic girl, and we used to make out sometimes after her shift. But she never would come. She wouldn't come back to the house that I was renting, and I could never understand why I couldn't get her to come back there. I couldn't go to. She lived upstairs from the pub. It was a very weird situation. I didn't know her backstory. You know, in Ireland, things can be very weird for Irish girls. You know, maybe they get pregnant and they have to leave their small town. There's a lot of that. And I didn't know if it was a situation like that or whatever, but she was living alone at a young age. I mean, she was 20 years old or something. And she was working at this pub and living upstairs, and she wouldn't come back to the apartment. And then I found out the guys we were renting the house from, the family lived next door to the house we were renting. And the guy was very friendly to us at first and then a little less friendly later. And I didn't know why. And I found out later, and also the guy had scars like the Joker. He had scars on the corners of his mouth going back into his cheeks. And I found out it was because he was dating Molly, and they were very serious. And I believe he cheated on her, and while he was drinking his pint, she smashed the glass into his face, and it cut up his face. And now he knew that I was flirting with Molly because he'd come by the pub. It was a small town. Kenmare has become a sizable town since then because it's gotten very fashionable and trendy. It's gorgeous and like great restaurants and shops. It's really amazing. But at the time, it was a small town. Everybody knew each other, and yeah. So I gave her the novel, and I let her keep it, which I thought was a romantic thing at the time. But I've since wished that I had kept it. I don't know. It was probably terrible. Who knows? Maybe it was brilliant. Brilliant. And then that was in Kenmare, and then I went to Cork, which is where we're going this summer. But I went to Cork because I had a friend in New York whose cousin lived in County Cork, in Cork City, in a little town called Blarney, which is where the Blarney Stone is. His name is T.O. Hoare. And I get to the town, and we go to meet up with him at this bar called the Courthouse. And we're supposed to just meet up. And we get to the pub, and I'm with Pete, my buddy Pete, Sneaky Pete. And we walk into the bar. And I don't know why, but me and Pete decided on this trip, we got big backpacks, rucksacks, I guess you call them. And we had Timberland boots and rucksacks, and we got trench coats. I have no idea why that was our clothing decision, but we went down to the village, and we went to thrift stores, and we bought trench coats. And that was our look. And so we walk into this bar. It's a kind of a college bar, and it's next to UC Cork, the university. And we walk in, and this guy, T.O., it's spelled T-H-E-O, but you pronounce it T-O in Ireland. He sees us, and he just fucking rolls his eyes. He's like, oh, my God, look at these two embarrassing Americans. And we come in, and he wants no part of us. His cousin he's doing this as a favor to his cousin. So, but then there was a pool table, and we started shooting some stick, and he saw that I could shoot, and we started making him laugh, and he saw that we could go toe-to-toe with him drinking pints. And in Ireland, here's what you do. You go out drinking with a group of lads, and you take turns buying rounds. And they're not cheap. It was expensive. I remember at the time, you know, I can't remember what a pint cost, but it was expensive. And so when it was your turn to buy a round, you were buying for like 7 guys. And when it was your turn, they would look at you and they'd say, tide's out, lad. The tide's out, which meant it was your turn to buy the round. And so the bigger the group you were with, the drunker you got that night because everybody was buying their fucking round. And so we made it. We shot pool, and by the end of the night, we were walking through the streets singing, and we clicked, and we ended up spending a lot of time in Cork. And then when we left Cork, Tio was studying at the university, and he took off from school. He took a break, and he hitchhiked with us up the coast. And we went up to Galway and Connemara. And we just, it was the greatest fucking guy. And then I've since gone, and then he came over to the States, stayed with me. And then we came back over and traveled with him again. I was with my college girlfriend, and we came to Ireland, and he was working a job, and he took time off from his job, and he traveled with me and Cindy, again, up the coast. We had a lot of adventures. So hopefully we're going to see him this summer. I got to reach out. We've been in touch lately. He just emailed me a couple weeks ago. He was in New York, and he wanted to know what comedy clubs to go to. So I should mention, by the way, that this podcast that you're listening to is sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy. Look, relationships, we're going to talk about those today. We talk about how a functioning relationship, and I'm proud to say I'm in one, takes work. You put work into it. You think about the other person. You honor the other person. You anticipate their needs. We put that much energy into a relationship. What about the relationship you have with yourself? That's what we're asking about. What are you doing for yourself, for your own sanity, for your own happiness? One thing I always recommend is do a gratitude list. I do that. I keep it on my phone in my notes app. I write down things that I'm grateful for. And when things are bad, I look at that. Nothing takes you out of your head better than that. But, there's other things you do. You hit the gym. You do transcendental meditation. Listen to meditation tapes. Spend time with friends. Whatever it is, what you should throw into that is BetterHelp Online Therapy. I signed up with them when the pandemic started. They came on as a sponsor, and I signed up with them, and I am still with them, and it's been an amazing experience. It got me through the difficult time of the pandemic, and I think just as difficult, if not harder, is kind of reemerging out of it into the real world again and trying to put behind us this was like a trauma. And it's something you need to deal with. So BetterHelp is online therapy that offers video, phone, even live chat sessions with your therapist. You don't have to see anybody on camera if you don't want to. It's way more affordable than in-person therapy. You'll be shocked at how cheap it is. And you can be matched with a therapist in under 48 hours. Give it a try. See why over 2 million people have used BetterHelp online therapy. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp, and Fitzdog Radio listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/Fitzdog. That's BetterHelp.com/Fitzdog. Do it. Reward yourself. You're worth it. There you go. I don't know how much you're following the Ukraine stuff, but it's pretty fucking intense. It's pretty amazing to watch the heroism of some of the Russian people because they are living in a state with a controlled media. And the population is being fed state-run propaganda. And they've shut off Facebook, they've shut off YouTube, and all that's left is Instagram. It's all banned. So the only thing they have left are these state-run TV news stations, which are, there's no journalism. So anyway, an employee, I just want to read you this article and talk about it for a minute. Because you think about heroes in life, and you think about, whether you want to talk about Rosa Parks or whoever, like there's people in the moment of history that put themselves They sublimate themselves for the greater good. And this is a woman who did that. Because with the media, if you're not getting you just think about what's going on with the media in this country and how the exposure that each sector of our population has to their bubble. And then you picture, what if there was only one bubble? What if, like in our country, we complain about propaganda, but there is always the option of looking at what the other side is saying. But there's no option in Russia. So an employee of Russia's state Channel 1 television has interrupted the channel's main news program with an extraordinary protest against Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine. Marina Ovsyannikova, an editor at Channel 1, burst onto the set of the live broadcast of the nightly news on Monday shouting, "Stop the war, no to war." She held up a sign saying, "Don't believe the propaganda. They're lying to you here." The news anchor continued to read from her teleprompter, speaking louder in an attempt to drown out Ovsyannikova, but her protest could be seen and heard for several seconds before they switched to a recorded segment. Ovsyannikova also released a pre-recorded video via the OVD Info human rights group in which she expressed her shame at working for Channel 1 and spreading Kremlin propaganda. Quote, "For a number of years, I worked on Channel 1." Now, keep in mind, if you speak out about this invasion, if you call it an invasion or you call it a war, it's a 15-year prison sentence. Like, no hearing, no fucking off for good behavior. 15 years in an ice-cold fucking cell where you are fed moldy food and beaten, and who knows what it's like in a Russian fucking prison. This woman knows that. And knowing that, she puts a message up saying, "I'm ashamed that I was allowed to tell lies from the television screen. Ashamed that I allowed the zombification of the Russian people. We were silent in 2014 when this was just beginning. We did not go out to protest when the Kremlin poisoned opposition leader Alexei Navalny. We are just silently watching this anti-human regime. And now the whole world has turned away from us, and the next 10 generations won't be able to clean themselves from the shame of this fratricidal war." So, I mean, it goes on, but it's incredible. The strength and the bravery of people. It's encouraging. Nearly 15,000 people, including children and elderly people, have been detained for protesting against the war. So she says they can't stop us all. 40,000 people have left comments on her Facebook page, I guess, maybe through using... maybe they're using ExpressVPN. You can use a VPN to get on some of these sites, but it's amazing. We went to a party on Saturday night at our friend Kim's house, and there was a Ukrainian woman there who was from the Ukraine. I always say the. Why do we say the Ukraine? It's Ukraine. And she was very emotional about it. She's got family over there, and she is just so upset at the misinformation. Like, somebody at the party said, "Doesn't Zelensky have ties to a neo-Nazi group?" And it was like, he's fucking Jewish. Russia is trying to say, there was a thing on the Daily today about, they were interviewing people on the street in Russia, and they are completely brainwashed. They believe that Ukrainian people in Russia are being killed by the Nazi-run government of Ukraine, and that it's Russia's duty to go in and free these people, and that they're building up arsenals of chemical weapons, and all this disinformation is being fed to people. And you see a nation mobilized against another nation based only on misinformation from the state. It's scary. God. So anyway, this woman was Ukrainian, and she started to cry a little bit. talking about it. It's very, and she said the way you can get money to them is you go on Ukrainian Airbnbs and you rent homes and apartments, knowing you'll never go there, but Airbnb has decided to waive their fees on Ukrainian rentals because it's a way to mainline money into people's hands in Ukraine right now. Because I guess it's difficult to get it there otherwise. I'm not sure, but that's what she's been doing. She's been renting Airbnbs in Ukraine. So that's it. What else? The book group is a big success. Aunt Kind by Charlie Kaufman is the book. I'm not going to say this month because I don't know how long it's going to take us to get through it. It's a 700-page book, and I put it out to you, the listeners, if anybody was interested in forming a book club and go through this book together. So I said I'd take the first 20 people. I got a ton of people, but I took the first 20, and we are going to start next week. So if you got an email from me that you're in, I will be reaching out to you by email this week, and we're going to just do it on a Zoom. We're going to do Zoom calls, and we're going to do 1 hour book club meetings on the book. So if you don't have it and you were told that you're in the group, get the book. You can get it on audible.com. You can buy it on Amazon. I don't give a shit. But do your homework. I don't want some people coming in and I didn't read it. Well, then what are you doing on the Zoom call? Read the book. It's funny as shit. It's laugh out loud funny. I need it. Can you imagine being in a fucking Russian prison for 15 years? God. I mean, I think about prison. I was obsessed for a while with prison. And when I was on the road, every single night I would go to bed watching Locked Up, that show on MSNBC, and watching how people, and you're watching people on the inside, and this is what the prison is allowing you to see. So I think about how would I do in a prison, like a real prison, maximum security. How would I get ready? Like, let's say I had 3 months before going to trial. I'm out on bail, but I know there's a real good chance that they're going to send me away. So you go to trial, they convict you, and they fucking send you away. Would I make it? How would I make it? And I used to think about it all the time. I used to think about how I would study Muay Thai, and I would just work out like a fucking lunatic. I would get some tattoos, and I mean, look, I'm not a young man. Maybe that's good. Maybe they don't look at you as a threat, and maybe they don't look at you as a piece of meat. Maybe I kind of skip past a lot of that. Maybe I'm aged out of being in danger in prison. Who knows? But I always wonder how I would do. I think I would try to be funny. That can help. That got me out of tight spots when I was young, being the funny guy. Got me slapped around a little bit too. Being a wise ass. But you can make some good friends. I had a little road rage 2 days ago. I was driving to play golf, which is, the course is 4 minutes from my house. And on the way to play the most peaceful sport known to man, I managed to almost get out of my car. I was thinking about getting the jack out of my car and smashing this guy's window. We're driving along my street, and this guy's going really fucking slow, like 12 miles an hour. And I'm late, so I'm getting a little worked up. And so he gets to, so I go to pass him, and he fucking cuts me off. And here's the thing you got to know. There's a thing at Trader Joe's called honey sesame cashews, and they made them for years, and they were my treat. They were my happy thing. And they stopped making them 6 months ago, and I have been despondent. If you've noticed a change in my tone in the last 6 months, it's because the Honey Nut Cashews have not been available at Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's does this. They get you hooked on something, and they take it away. They do it all the time. They've done it a lot. And now they've done it with the Honey Nut Cashews. And so anyway, my wife comes back from Trader Joe's that morning with the Holy Grail. She found a bag. I don't know if they're back full time or if this was in the back shelf and they put it out, but she got her hands on a bag of it. And I am fucking cradling this like my newborn. And I take it to golf. And I'm in the car and I've got the bag opened on my lap. And when this guy cut me off, I slammed on the brakes and the entire bag turned upside down and poured onto my filthy fucking Prius carpet. And at that moment, I had a choice of completely losing my shit and getting the tire iron and cutting this guy back off or smashing into his car. Might have been my decisions earlier in life. And in this case, I took a breath and I continued on to the golf course where I played a lovely round of golf with my friends. I collected the nuts that were in the second layer of the floor. So I got about a third of the bag back in. And the rest are still on the floor. I can't bring myself to even vacuum them up. They're just fucking spread out all over the floor of my Prius. And, yeah. So that was my road rage incident. Let's do some mail from you guys. Guy named Gus wrote in. He said, funny thought. Have you ever publicly addressed the fact that you and Bert Kreischer both say nightmare rather than nightmare? It can be regional. With you from New York, it can't be regional because you're from New York and he's from Tampa. I know. So many people have pointed this out, that Bert and I both say nightmare. I don't know where it comes from. I say milk. I say farhead. And I say nightmare. And I'm sticking with it. I'm not fucking changing at this point. Let's do some overheards. Garrett Blue said, when I was 16, I was in college. A class group met at a classmate's sorority house. Did I read this? I can't remember if I read this or not. I'm going to read it again just in case. We had about 8 people in the group at the sorority house, including both guys and girls studying. Inside, we were all sitting at a large table off to the left on the ground. And then the door crashes open. 2 sorority girls come running in. One yells to the other one, God, I have to take a giant shit, and runs up the stairs. They ran up so fast, they never even noticed us. We looked at each other mortified. I would have been embarrassed for her, but she never had a chance to see us because she had to release those chocolate hostages so fast. Chocolate hostages. Garrett. Yeah, that's good. That's a good overheard. Anything to do with, women talking about shit and farting is always enjoyable. There's not enough of that. I have a couple friends that are girls that fart. Mary Fitzgerald will fart in front of you, and she'll talk about how she keeps potpourri in her purse, and about her incessant anal. She's obsessed with her anus and keeping it clean, and I enjoy that. I'm going to Mary's father died during the pandemic, and they're having a memorial for him at PJ Clark's, as a matter of fact. And I'm going to go to in Boston, and I'm going to go to the memorial service with her whole family. It's going to be great. I think Tom O'Neill is flying in for it. It's going to be huge. Big Dorchester event. All right, and then this came from, oh, fuck. I lost the name of who sent this overheard in, but I'm going to read it anyway. In these dystopian times, I have a policy where if a person cannot afford to pay for a meal, they will be fed something. No questions asked. I clearly lost a part of this message. This guy must own a diner or something. Consequently, we have a tribe of homeless regulars. Most are very decent and grateful and will often offer to do odd jobs around the property in exchange. Some, however, present themselves in such a manner only to, say, steal from a cashier's tip jar when they turn around. The cashiers were explaining how one particular man was recently banned for doing such to one of our more distinguished homeless gentlemen, who we affectionately call Curly. Curly was outraged and said, "Damn, I'm never going to give that dude another piece of crack." Well, maybe if you guys all got together, you could get this guy off crack. Sean finally says, "I'm a mental health therapist and have thought many times that comedians and writers are like mental health workers, since making us laugh is good for mental, emotional, and physical health. Comedians basically use a CBT, that's cognitive behavioral therapy, technique called reframing, tweaking the perspective on a situation to get the brain thinking in a different direction. It's the glass half full, half empty idea oversimplified. Greg, I appreciate that you've shared your experience with depression. It's critical that men talk more about their anger, frustration, hurt, etc., and which often masks underlying depression that begins to really rear its ugly head for many men in middle age, when alcohol, work frustration, marital relationships, stress really begin to challenge our coping skills. There's a reason why we die sooner than women. That's right. Men do not age well. I've noticed that. Men don't smile at each other when they walk down the street, middle-aged men. And they don't cry, and they don't express. We're socialized to be tough, and as you get older, you just get kind of tougher. And it's a shame, and I need to take some mushrooms, and I need to open it up. I'm going to open myself up emotionally to the world and to you, the listener. That is my promise in 2022. I am going to take more mushrooms, and I'm going to share all my experiences with you. I don't know. A lot of people ask me about microdosing. I don't really know. If anybody out there is a microdoser, please write in to fitzdog@gmail.com and let me know how much to take, how often to take it, any other parameters I should observe, set and setting, what I should do to create the right setting to take them in, etc. Can you drive on a microdose? Can you make love on a microdose? Can you get a hand job while driving on a microdose? And why would I talk about hand jobs when I'm using the word micro? Just coincidence. There's nothing there. Don't look into it. All right, that'll do it. Listen, you guys are great. Thank you for all the emails, the overheards. Please write in. I love to hear from you. I get back to everybody. And I look forward to seeing some of you on St. Patrick's Day. If not, some of the other dates I announced earlier, go to fitzdog.com, get tickets. Come on out and say hi. We'll have some fun. And as this last writer, Sean, wrote in, it's good for you, physically, emotionally, spiritually. See some live comedy. All right. Until next time, thanks to Midcoast Media for doing a great job producing the podcast. And we'll catch you next time. God bless America.